Want to go to the Liberty University Newsmaker line? It's an honor to have George P. Bush hanging out with us, running for the Attorney General spot there in the great state of Texas. George, hope you're doing good today.
Great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, look, so I'm excited about your candidacy here, but I want you to address this tweet that Karl Rove put out the other day. He says that the Bush family's very bothered by your support of President Trump, and I believe he actually used the term "Jeb is heartbroken," talking about your dad. What's your reaction to Karl Rove?
Well, I've actually, as part of this campaign, determined to quit Twitter, and so this is the first time I'm hearing about it. But whether it's Karl or others in my Republican primary here in Texas, I'm sharing with voters my vision. It'll be my name on the ballot, and I happen to be a big supporter of President Trump. I thought his policies on our southern border as related to illegal immigration, his ideas in terms of defunding cities that defund the police, taking on human trafficking, which are the big issues for an attorney general in our state, I just happen to be in close alignment with. And in terms of my family dynamic, I obviously love them. I talk with Dad, my Uncle George, ask for their advice when they're willing to give it. And, they understand that the stakes are large. And when you look at the Biden-Harris agenda, a state like Texas has to step up to the plate and push back. Otherwise, there's some other great states, but we're the biggest one. So we got to be in the fight.
No, I hear you. And I think, honestly, George, when you look at the hatred coming from the mainstream media, I mean, the Washington Post had a headline, George P. Bush, the Lone Star State's latest profile in cowardice. I mean, George, that tells me that you are onto something here and you have a very large base of support in Texas.
Well, thank you for that, Todd. I mean, I think similar to, I remember when I campaigned for my uncle, when he was president, they would describe it as the Bush derangement syndrome in the mainstream media. But, the Trump derangement syndrome is really on a different level. I mean, you can't, and in today's cancel culture, you can't express your beliefs and your ideas without, a threat of being canceled or criticized. But, I've been in public service now for 6 years. I've served in the military for a decade. I've got tough skin and I'm willing to take the heat because the values are too important and we got to win it.
On the Liberty University Newsmaker line, George P. Bush running for Attorney General there in the state of Texas. Ken Paxton has certainly been in the headlines lately. What's your estimation of how he has run that office?
Well, there's certainly changes we can make. Ideologically, we see eye to eye on a lot of issues. He's made some good filings, hasn't won as many cases as you would hope for. But what this campaign is going to be about is the competency, the integrity, the character of running an office of 4,200 people with a budget of about $660 million. And, I'm here in Austin. I'm ready to go. I have a proven track record of asking more from less. I've downsized my workforce at the land office by 20%, saving the taxpayer millions of dollars. And so when you look at this agency, I've talked about border security. I've talked about human trafficking, where there's been 0 cases referred to the AG's office. This is one of the fast growing crimes in our state. And because of the crisis in leadership, we haven't seen a lot of local DAs refer those cases. Backing the thin blue line, making sure we're preventing the stripping of authority of our honorable men and women that wear the blue and separate us from the chaos and anarchy. But my fourth pillar, which I think goes to your question, is just restoring accountability to a large bureaucracy. I bring a background in business and also in law, and have a really good team that can help clean up and make things more efficient in the day-to-day practice.
And again, I mean, we're talking about a major state that, how Texas goes, so goes the rest of the nation. And there are a lot of concerns about the number of people moving in from blue states and bringing their politics with them. Are you concerned about that as well?
To a certain extent, our studies showed that roughly half of the California, just to give you a context, about 150 people moved here to Austin, the capital city, every single day on a net basis, and about 1,000 Texas on a net basis. And at least in Austin, it's estimated that half come from California, which from a Republican Party perspective certainly raises flags. But our estimate shows that half of those Californians are registered Republicans. And so when you look at kind of 2018, the last time we were at the statewide on the election ballot, it was fairly tight. Ted Cruz wins with a little over 2%. Ken Paxton, the current attorney general, won. He was the lowest vote getter at about 1.5%. And since that time, we got the wake-up call that we need to reach out to these registered Republicans that are moving here because of the failed liberal progressive policies of California, New York, and Illinois, micro-target them, encouraging them to register and get out to vote. And it showed in 20, where President Trump carried the state with close to 10%, carrying long-held Democrat counties on the southern border, majority Hispanic communities, close to getting Hidalgo County, Zapata County over the security issue. And so I'm optimistic because we're fine-tuning the process at the state party level to find these new voters, encounter them, remind them that the reason why you're moving to Texas is because of free markets, because of conservative values, and committed state leadership that's going to make sure that we keep it that way.
And real quick, George, I want to jump in. I made a mistake. I misspoke. This was the quotes about your dad being heartbroken came from an unnamed Republican consultant, not Carl Rove.
Even better.
So, man, they do not like you. It's clearly you're doing something right over there in Texas.
Yeah, well, I think it probably is Churchill, right, that said that if you're not getting flack on the underside of your air asset, you're probably not over the target. So,
very delicately put.
I just think that this party needs to look forward and find solutions and train fire on the true opponent here, and the state like Texas has to step up and meet that challenge.
No, I'm with you. And one final question. I'm curious, why did you support Donald Trump? What was it about Donald Trump that you said, yeah, he's the guy?
Well, back in 2016, after I got reelected, I basically led the Republican Party effort on behalf of the state party. And, the enthusiasm, the energy, and just to be clear, like a lot of Republicans, I supported another candidate. I supported my dad. But when things, didn't work out for the campaign, I was one of the first here in statewide politics to get on the Trump train. And, I reminded, and I always have this debate with members of my family, that to reconcile supporting somebody like Hillary Clinton is unacceptable. And as I got to know the president more and his ideas and how it works for our state, it's led to just incredible prosperity, particularly for an agency like ours, where we deal with oil and gas and hard hat blue collar workers that depend on these industries that the left is trying to erase from the map. And then in his reelection effort, I was happy to be involved in the campaign. And I remember making a bold proclamation that Trump is the only thing standing between this country and socialism. And I turned out to be right. We've seen a proposal of over $10 trillion in new spending, piling up a mountain of debt that our children and our grandchildren will never be able to pay off. And it's very alarming, and it's happening in short order. And so I for one, have a sense of urgency about this and remain committed to the America First policies.
All right, George, where can folks go if they would like to get more information about your campaign?
Please check out my website at georgepfortexas.com, where you can learn more about what we're up to. And then we also have our social media outlets, whether that's Facebook or others. And but again, I committed myself to not be on there, but we've got a really good team that can follow up with you and make sure that we can get you all involved in the campaign.
Love it. All right, George, we're going to leave it there. We're going to get you back on later in the campaign. Best of luck to you out there.
Thank you, Todd. God bless.
All right, George P. Bush, ladies and gentlemen, good fella. Don't believe all the garbage you're going to be reading in the mainstream media about this guy, but he's a good guy, and he does back the Trump agenda. And if you back the Trump agenda, that means you're thinking correctly.